Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. I'm on dad duty this morning, as it is, but there's a lot to cover. So we're doing the show. Anyway. Am I live? I'm live, right? Yes? No? Yes? All right, good. Pretty interesting day that we have, or actually week shaping up. A lot of stuff going on. Of course, we have Julian Assange. Julian Assange is free, and that right there is some big news. So makes you wonder, of course, what happened behind the scenes in order to do that. I've also been covering all kinds of different mask type of things. I guess I'm going to get rid of this virtual background here. It's kind of messing everything up a little bit. All right, there we go. And then as well, maybe I'll join from my phone here in a minute. So, yeah, Julian Assange is free. Now, what happened in order to make him free, we'll probably never know. As well, you see with all these masks and everything going on, I mean, who knows? Really what the story is there. But it looks like, anyway, he is free. And that is a very good thing. So, God bless him. If you remember, Julian Assange is the reason why I don't think Trump would have been elected. Maybe he would have, but I don't think Trump would have been elected if Julian Assange was not involved. Of course, he brought out all of the stuff. Somehow he got hold of Hillary Clinton's stuff, her hard drive or whatever it was. Of course, there was Seth Rich. There was a bunch of other stuff as well that went on there. And anyway, God bless him. So it looks like he is free, and that is pretty awesome. And yeah, so he's on his last leg. I just reposted on my X account and commented, I think, that he's free and he is on his last leg of his journey to Australia. So that is remarkable. Definitely in my opinion, a missed chance by Trump to not free him in the beginning, because he should have been free, and we should pardon Snowden now as well. Okay, so I'm going to try to do things here. I'm going to try to. Sorry about that. I'm going to try to switch to my phone, but I guess I'll wait for a minute. So as well, we have the markets rebounding. Markets are rebounding pretty nicely. And if you were able to catch, it's probably still a good move. Who knows? With the geopolitical situation that's happening right now, it is very hard to know what the market is going to do. It should do things, right? It should operate one way. But, if Russia retaliates and drops nuclear weapons somewhere, well, that changes everything, right? Russia has promised retaliation. I don't know if they're going to retaliate. Historically, they have played the role of the more responsible adult and not gone tit for tat. But bombing kids and wives and families on the beach is pretty hard to swallow. By, I'm sure, Putin himself, but also the Russian public. So we'll see how that all turns out. Of course, we have the market report with the great Matt Dixon coming up as well. But yeah, so if that happens, that bets are all off. Of course, now as I predicted all along, Israel now is going to, almost certainly invade Lebanon. Netanyahu apparently is coming to D.C. to speak at Congress. He's extremely unpopular over here. I think actually throughout the world. But he's going to come to speak to Congress, and that means you better open up your wallet because they want more money. That's why they're going to do it. Of course, they marched the last guy in here. What's his name? Their little sister country president. Zelensky. They marched Zelensky in here. And you left with $100 billion. So right now it would be extremely unpopular for Congress to pass another $100 billion. So they're going to bring Netanyahu in here, and he's going to give a speech, and they're going to say how bad everybody is that doesn't support him. You don't have to support them. You know what I mean? Everybody can have their own opinion. You can support them if you want, but I don't want to break out another few $1,000s for their war. I think they need to have some peace. The same thing with over there in Russia and Europe and Ukraine. But anyway, so that's going to happen. Really big stories of this week. Number of things, though. Number one, of course, we have the Trump-Biden debate on Thursday. With actually a number, and I even forgot in the title because I'm driving. The PCE numbers are out on Friday as well. Matt will talk more about that. But we have the Trump-Biden debate on Thursday. Now, from what I understand, this is like a very they've really limited the amount of, or they've really maximized the amount of control that the moderators have. So it'll be interesting to see how that debate even falls out. They can mute the microphones pretty much when they want. We'll see. I think both sides will claim victory either way, right? And then we have SCOTUS. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, is ruling. They've changed their schedule. They were supposed to meet on Wednesday of next week, and then they changed their schedule, and they are now meeting on today, or tomorrow and Friday. I think tomorrow and Friday. So, of course, there's all kinds of speculation on whether they are going to rule on this presidential immunity. They're calling it Trump immunity, but it's really presidential immunity. It's hard to see that they rule on it, to be honest. I don't know. It's hard to see that they rule against presidential immunity. It's hard to see that they rule for presidential immunity. It's hard to see that they rule on it, period. So we'll see. There's a couple other high-profile cases that they have there. So it's going to be a heck of a week. I don't know when exactly Netanyahu is speaking as well, but it's going to be a heck of a couple of weeks, I suppose, here in the District of Columbia. World War III seems imminent. Seems like we can't stop it at this point. Of course, they're pushing through the draft, send everybody to war, our sons and daughters, apparently, to war. I don't know really what's happened with everybody. I think that at this point, if you're a man and you have a daughter, you should really be up in arms about this whole bit. They're going to draft our daughters? Send them to war? Are you kidding me? That's pretty over the top. It's way past okay. So that, of course, I think still has to pass the Senate, but that's like a rubber stamp, right? So we'll see what happens. But that's crazy. And the big hack. So the Federal Reserve, according to a well-known hacker group, the Federal Reserve has been hacked. There is some speculation. Maybe it's a bit of maybe it's nonsense, but it's supposed to be Russian hacker group, and that's would be one of the greatest hacks of all time. They said they had 33 terabytes of information, though, which 33 is kind of one of their numbers. So I don't know. We'll see. But they said you guys better put up or shut up type deal. And we'll see. But that could be something else, because now more than ever, people are realizing that we're ruled by the Federal Reserve, by the central bank, and it's a very elite group of people who are really foreigners. They weren't here. They're newcomers, but over the last 100 years. But then they've now come in and they've really taken over the United States. They rule everything. So stopping or ending the Federal Reserve is an absolute must. So we'll see what happens. More and more people understand that the central banking cabal is running the country. They're also running the media. They're running Congress. The Republicans are completely out of touch with their base as well, having Netanyahu in here to speak, because of course you have some loudmouths that run around, yes, but it's wildly unpopular to send our aircraft carriers over there, to have boots on the ground, which is, if this keeps continuing, will happen, and to send our money over to Eastern Europe, to the Middle East, to Taiwan. I mean, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Anyway, let's talk more about the markets here. Let's bring on the great Matt Dixon. Sir.
Hey, morning, Bruce. Morning, Impact Money. This is amazing. What a cool dude. Holding a show while he's driving. Serious.
Thanks, man. So my 14-year-old, she's pretty awesome. She's singing and dancing and all this stuff, and she has nationals for her team, figure skating team, and I'm taking her to meet with some of the partners and stuff. And anyway, my wife said we got one more night with her if I did this, or we sent her off yesterday, and we decided it was worth one more night.
Yeah, excellent.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too. Worrying stuff. What you're saying about Middle East and Russia and so on, and it is genuinely worrying, more so than anyone's factoring in, more so than the markets are factoring in. This is serious stuff, and people need to be, just need to be aware of what's going on. It's very, very dangerous times that we're living in. So with Israel, I mean, there's definitely two sides to the story, I guess. I'm actually, I understand, I believe, from Israel's perspective. I saw pictures of, I think it was Gaza before all the troubles, a bustling city atmosphere. And then after, obviously, it's a heap of rubble. And they're saying that's basically what Israel caused. Well, what caused this current conflagration was that Hamas attacked Israel.
If you want to go back to October 7th, sure. But if you want to go back further than that, then it's Israel who did it. You know what I mean? I mean, these people have been fighting for thousands of years. So, yeah, sure, October 7th. But, I mean, they've been attacking each other forever. And October 7th, to me, looks like a set-up job. I've said it publicly multiple times. It looks like another type of 9/11 deal. So,
Anyway, there's always different sides to every argument, and I never want to get into an argument over stuff I don't really know.
I know, me either.
So, as you say, markets, amazing. So there's something that happened last Friday that many people are not aware of, and that was something called quadruple witching. And it's basically when you get, it's the date on which stock index futures, stock index options, stock options, and single stock futures expire simultaneously. Bit of a mouthful, but it's basically all these kind of futures all expiring at the same time. and they've traditionally been, and actually I'll share my screen, I think is probably the best thing to do. Let me jump into sharing screen. Because it's actually a really significant event, and actually way more so, I believe, than, for example, halving, the big halving event that everybody was talking about how predictive it is and so on. And as I say, I put those halving events, I think I'm sharing my screen, so I'll just jump on. I trust you can see that dark chart.
Yes, go ahead, and I'll be right back.
Yeah. So, I mean, this quadruple witching, it's very, very significant. It's actually been known for many years in the stock market. It has a big impact on currencies. And now, because of such correlation across all these assets, it has a big effect in markets. And in fact, it has been shown that it is often a turning point, turning on a sixpence, a turning point in the crypto markets, particularly Bitcoin, of course. Last Friday was quadruple witching, and so there's a real anticipation that might be a turning point for Bitcoin and for crypto assets. And obviously not a lot happened over the weekend, quiet weekend, but come Monday, we got a bit of effectively a bottoming of the market, I think, quite possibly, and markets seem to turn very much for the better right now. So this was, just a chart showing some of these quadruple witching events. I just want to show as well something which is very important and significant that I posted today was the fear and greed index. So in this turning point, we've talked about fear and greed in the past. The last time we looked at fear and greed, it was in a situation of extreme greed. The needle was right over to the right-hand side here. I think the greed last month, as we can see here, was 75. It was really extreme. And this for me is one of the most powerful, what they call contrarian indicators. So when you see really strong greed, it's contrarian. It means that the market is at extreme risk. And the very words I used on the last show where we looked at this greed, fear and greed, and it was in a situation of extreme greed, I said that the warning lights are flashing. Because when the market is in extreme greed, it means that everybody's bought in, everybody's extremely enthusiastic about the market. And it means there's very few buyers to be found because they're all in the market long already. So the only thing that can really happen when the market is extremely extended like this is for a reversal. And that is precisely what I've seen. And that's why I was saying the warning lights were flashing when we were in that extreme greed mode. And now we've swung all the way back, and now we're in fear mode. I wouldn't call it extreme fear, but the market is fearful. And so there's real potential now for a market turnaround. And you look for a catalyst. When these things happen, you have extremes in fear and greed. You look for a catalyst. One of those catalysts was, for example, that quadruple witching, the expiration of all these futures last Friday, and people taking new positions now. And I understand futures have been a big element of basically hedging against positions with the ETF and so on. So very, very important event. And then the other big event that's coming up Friday, it's only 3 or 4 days away now, is the PCE news that we mentioned yesterday. Now, this is another potential to really turn the market. Now, we need to see what the market is going to do before we get to, just before the news comes out. If we see the market rallying sharply now until that news, then very often these news act as reversal points. But we need to see what the news is. And I'm expecting that we'll see weaker PCE. We're expecting 2.6%. And as I mentioned yesterday, Trueflation actually has us at the 2% level now on inflation. And interestingly, I don't think I mentioned this yesterday, I've been reading that inflation, and as I know Bruce has been saying this all along, that inflation has been way, way higher than people have been, than the authorities have been telling us. So when inflation was 9%, actual inflation was probably nearer 18%. The reason for that is that the measures for inflation don't take into account mortgage costs and interest costs. And when interest rates are sky high, effectively as they are, sky high comparatively to what they've been, then the cost of mortgages has rocketed. And this is people's major expense. The cost of mortgage, the cost of interest on loans, etc. It's their major expense. And this is why inflation was not real inflation for ordinary people wasn't 9%, it was 18%. Yes, for the very, very wealthy who don't have to pay interest and don't have to pay mortgages, then obviously inflation for them was lower. But for the ordinary person who lives to pay their mortgage, to pay their rent, to pay their, their debts, etc., inflation's been sky high. And that's why they may be saying that everyone's well off, because there's been all this money printing that happened over the years with 2008 financial crisis, with COVID, etc. All this money printing, money has gone into these risk assets. But as I've said before, that is not a good way to allocate capital for growth in the economy, because it just goes into risk assets and makes the rich richer. But it doesn't help the ordinary poor people. It doesn't help the actual economy itself. And a far better way to spend all this money, if you're creating all this money, is to put it into infrastructure. And again, I remember mentioning on a previous show, maybe a couple of months back now, when I think a bridge collapsed in America. If they rebuilt every bridge in America, all that infrastructure spending gives people real jobs. And that is what the economy needs, jobs, not inflating financial assets to make the rich people richer. So again, I think Bruce gave you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I couldn't have explained it better myself. It's absolutely correct. And the jobs, the unemployment right now, even though they fluff the numbers and they're saying all this other stuff, the job market right now is not good. The unemployment is higher. People don't have as many jobs, and even the jobs that they've said that were like California. I just had Zero Hedge came out with a report yesterday, and the jobs that California had boasted about having all these new jobs, they had actually faked those numbers.
Yeah, these things will change very, very quickly, these numbers. So everyone's saying, oh, we're going to get a soft landing, etc., etc. I've said for a long time that this money printing won't end well, because when they stop it, it hasn't really helped the economy. So it's not real. As I've said before, it's just a sticking plaster. It makes things look good because rich people get richer, etc. But it doesn't address the underlying problem, doesn't address the needs of the ordinary people. And the divide is getting wider and wider. And so we really do need something that helps ordinary people and not just makes the rich richer. So when they withdraw this financial stimulation, which is the money printing, which they have been withdrawing it will cause a hard landing. And there have been enough signs of recession coming, and we've seen I've gone on enough times in the past about those unemployment figures beginning to tick up higher. That's the first warning sign, the canary in the coal mine, that things are not altogether right. And we need to start worrying. There's been lots and lots of other signs, inversion of the yield curve and many, many other indicators saying that recession is coming. Whether they'll be able to stave it off, they probably will stave it off for the time being till after the election, I assume. That means if they are to do that, they will probably lower interest rates and they will start to print money once again. And we know printing money, every time they do it, has less and less effect. So if they have another round of money printing, it will have less effect than the previous, which had less effect than the previous. So it's just shortening the road. They're kicking the can down the road, but eventually we're going to run out of road. And basically we'll have to meet the obligations, and it's not going to be particularly nice. So for the time being, right now, let's get to today where we're at. I mean, I've got Solana up here on the charts. We had an amazing bounce back. Solana dipped to 123 yesterday.
Yeah, so that was crazy.
Yeah, actually 122. I watched it down to 123. I see here it dipped to 122. It's 137 right now. So that's what, 12%, something like 12% rise in one day. That's phenomenal. I've been saying again, don't forget, we just showed the fear and greed index. Everyone's now getting towards extreme fear. This is the time to start DCAing. And the number of times I've said DCA in the past couple of days, because the market has fallen sharply, people are fearful, the sellers are now sold, or mainly sold. We may have a bit lower to go. We can't tell the exact, especially with corrections, they're choppy. You can't tell whether we're exactly at the bottom of the market, but that's why we DCA. We don't jump in one go. So we could have DCA'd from when we were talking about it a couple of days ago and continue to DCA whenever we get a pullback. Because looking slightly longer term, and I'll just flip this to, we're on 4 hour now, I'll just flip it to a slightly longer term chart. Look on the daily, we can really see there that the trend is still to the upside. This is just a choppy movement to the downside, with lots of overlapping movements. So this movement up here, and in fact, I'll show you gold again. There's real overlap with gold, but here, this movement up, overlap this movement down. It's choppy, it's corrective. It means it's against the trend, the movement down. Now, we may or may not finish the move down. We're probably close to it. We may have a bit lower to go. But the likelihood is we are going to push above this, what I've got labeled as blue wave 3. We're going to push above that, which was 209. That's highly likely. Worst case scenario, we should probably challenge that 209. I'll look to probably protect positions if we get back up there. But it's looking promising. And I said that, again, last couple of days, when everyone's getting fearful, serious traders need to start thinking, this is an opportunity. There's opportunity coming our way. So there's real potential there. We've seen dollar index. I'll just, actually, we've got some good overlap here, I think. Actually, I need to go back to the 4 hour there. But this actually shows, I'll actually just focus on this for a moment, just to show you what I mean by the overlap. So all of these waves, so this movement up here was overlapped by this movement down here. And this movement up here was overlapped by this movement down here. And this movement up here was overlapped by this movement down here. So that's what these circles are trying to show. This is choppy overlapping movement to the upside. This is on dollar index. So if I just move into a shorter time frame, so we've had that choppy movement to the upside. That means the movement upwards is corrective on dollar index. So I'm expecting further downward movement on dollar index, which will be positive crypto. So everything, once again, I'm always talking about this, lining everything up, all the jigsaw pieces fitting. We've had it when the market's reversing down, and now we're getting it with the market potentially, likely setting up for a nice rally the other way. So this was the bigger scale movement, overlapping movement upside. So that means the upside is corrective. So we're looking for 5 waves to the downside to confirm that the impulsive direction is going to be down. So far, you can see here, I've actually managed to count 5 clear waves to the downside. So wave 1 down, 2 up, 3 down, extended wave 3 as you'd expect, wave 4 up and wave 5 down, taking us just below that wave 3. So this is a valid 5 waves down on dollar index. That's the value of the dollar against a basket of currencies. After 5 waves, you'd expect some kind of choppy correction higher, a little bit higher here, but not to exceed that previous high. And then further movement to the downside, at least another 5 waves to the downside. So that, if we get more downside movement on dollar index, that is going to be quite positive for risk assets like cryptocurrencies. So that is a good sign. And we're seeing that beginning to shine through. We got Bitcoin. Bitcoin dipped to 58,000 last night, 58.4. I've been mentioning these levels as potential targets, and we may possibly try lower, but I think that we'll just need to look at this probably on a shorter time frame to see whether it's impulsive at the moment. So I'll just look at it on the hourly just to see what we can see. And actually, I can see already a potential 5 wave movement to the upside there. In the making, not quite there yet, because we've got potentially wave 1 up, 2 down, 3 up, 4 down. And the 5 would need to go above this previous level here. That's 61,581. We're very close to that. We're only $400 away from that to push to give us a 5th wave. That would then be 5 waves up on Bitcoin. Then we get 3 back, and then the next impulsive move to the upside. So it's not confirmed yet, but on this current candle, if we're to finish to the upside above here, then that's telling us we've got a 5 wave move to the upside. That's promising. That would tell us that we then have 3 back and then a further 5 waves at least to the upside. So that's, again, a very, very promising sign we've got in crypto there. So Solana's looking amazing. Bitcoin is looking amazing. Same sort of thing we've got here with, potentially here. Again, same situation as Bitcoin. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're working potentially on a 5th wave to the upside. So we need to see a bit more upside to confirm that this move up that we're seeing is genuine. What Bruce was saying about the geopolitical climate, and as I said, it's not yet really being reflected in the market. If there was genuine acceptance that there's real risk in the market, then we would be seeing oil really taking off. And I suppose if you look on the daily, it's had a reasonable move up, but Yeah, nothing too powerful as yet. If I just move that, we still have basic bearish divergence. So that probably is a good sign again for risk assets, putting all those jigsaw pieces together to make up the whole picture. So once again, we have lower highs on the price, and we have higher highs on the RSI. That's telling us of hidden bearish divergence, telling us of likely more downside to come with oil, and that's probably a good sign. We don't want to see geopolitical risk flaring up because that would hit risk assets. It would strengthen the dollar. Oil price would probably go through the roof as well. So right now, this indicator and the fact that we also have a nice red candle there is probably telling us that we might see a bit of downside to come on oil, which generally is quite good for the economy because it means the cost of production, the cost of transport.
Gas right now here in the U.S. is high.
Yeah.
It didn't take long. Sometimes it takes longer. It always seems it takes longer to go down when the price of oil goes down than go up. As soon as the price of oil goes up, it immediately.
Yeah, the oil companies do lag. Whenever the price comes down, they're very, very slow to reduce prices because it means they can take more profit out of it. But the moment they move up, obviously they're not slow to move prices up. So it's the oil prices, so the oil companies manipulating the gas prices, etc., the fuel prices. They're manipulating them to their own advantage. There should be something done about it because it's not really fair on the consumer. But anyway, that's another issue. We'll look very quickly at gold. We're still in that correction. You see I had here label correction, and we can see gold price has moved down a bit. I still expect probably some more movement down on gold. Remember, I'm always saying that gold is reasonably well correlated with oil. So I'm expecting oil down. I also expect gold down a little bit further as well. So to complete this ABC correction I've been talking about forever, but it is a correction, very choppy, very sideways. Every wave is overlapping the previous wave, etc. So I'm still expecting a bit lower, which would align with our expectation of oil lower, which would in general be good for risk assets. Just look at a couple because I think we're almost out of time again. Toncoin has had a really good run. It was featured on eBay as one of the favorite eBay upgraded assets, and it's done tremendously well. It's really held its own when the rest of the market was falling sharply. Toncoin really held its own. We had an indicator here. I haven't moved this, haven't put this on recently. This was from ages ago. I put this arrow on saying we're expecting upward movement, and this actually coordinated with an eBay upgrade, and we can see some beautiful price appreciation there.
It really has been an impressive asset through downtrend. What's the current price on it? 7.58.
7.58. So it's up today 1.16%.
I mean, it basically, yeah, it's well, that ecosystem. Once they start building these different tokens, and once they start building that, you buy a bunch of TON right now at $7 or $7.50, and if it does go to $100, which it might. Now you have a lot of time that you can invest in all types of different projects. And so people that know better saw that happen with Ethereum, saw it happen with Binance Coin, saw it happen with some of the other ones, and they know that's the play.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's tremendous. The big gainer of today has actually been Solana, which is up 3.99% right now. Massive gainer. But then since yesterday, as I say, it's up 12% or something. Been phenomenal. So all in all, looking like a green day across the board. GameStop, which is that crazy stock meme, is down, which I'm pleased to see. I don't care about it. Just hope nobody loses. But it's funnily enough, though, we're seeing Nvidia down again, 6.66%. Big fall in Nvidia, which is it was one of the big rises, but it's fallen so sharply recently. That's
Nvidia.
Amazing. Yeah. And well, the memes are doing nicely today. Dogecoin up 3.53%, Booker memes 2.39, Shiba 1.12. So in general, markets looking healthy. I'm hoping we follow through. Let's get gradually move towards Friday, and let's hope we get some good PCE figures. I'm afraid I'm going to have to run and leave you, Bruce. I've got a meeting I've got to run to now, but I hope that was helpful today. Great to catch up.
Awesome.
Thank you for
it was great to catch up.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Catch you all soon. And bye
for
now.
Sure. Cheers. Well, there you have it, folks. The market roundup there. I think that it's obviously a nice move upward. I agree with Matt that these markets, they're normally figuring in what is going to happen, but I don't think they're figuring in the geopolitical situation. That is a wild card in the mix. You could argue maybe that by not figuring it in, they think that things are going to cool down, but that seems like a stretch to me. You know what I mean? To think that Russia is not going to retaliate and that is going to just go away seems like a stretch. And as well, it seems like a stretch that all of a sudden Israel is going to accept some hostage deal or whatever. They had a deal, I guess, that Israel rejected. So that's going to continue on. And, there's a lot of killing. There's a lot of killing going on, unfortunately. So we all need to pray. We need to, hold our families close. We need to pray and see, we need to try to move that forward. So we also have, there's a lot going on. Of course, this Trump immunity case, I think, is pretty interesting. Do you guys think that they're going to hear this? Do you guys think that they're going to hear this case? I don't know. So if I go over here, the Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court, this is Chicago, if the Supreme Court doesn't grant presidential immunity to Trump, then Joe Biden could be held accountable for the murder. If the Supreme Court doesn't grant presidential, then Joe Biden could be held accountable for the murder of Lake and Riley and others who lost their lives on the open border policy. So, a word of advice, blah, blah, blah. This is Dick Van Dyke, slams cable networks for not reporting on Trump's clear path back to the White House due to presidential immunity. This is actually pretty interesting here.
I'm Dick Van Dyke. You may remember me. I used to fall down a lot on purpose. I don't speak up a lot, but there's something on my mind that I wanted to talk about. Our Supreme Court has delayed any decision about a president's immunity, and at the same time they have stalled everything so that Donald Trump's path back to the White House is pretty clear now. And when that happened, both of the cable network stations printed headlines, corrupt. Our Supreme Court is corrupt. And then nothing, silence. Not another word been spoken about it by anybody. They dropped the subject as if they'd been squelched. At the same time, for some reason, our college students, out of the blue, became very concerned about what's happening in the Middle East. I'm beginning to feel a little manipulated somehow. Think about it, will you? Thanks.
Well, of course. I mean, the name of the game is manipulation for these people. They've been doing it for a long time. But presidential immunity has been around for a long time. Does President Trump have presidential immunity? It seems to be a little bit ridiculous that it's even at the Supreme Court. Of course, they've punted on this and pushed it off. I don't really think that they're going to rule on it now, if they haven't ruled on it yet, to be frank. But they might. If he doesn't have presidential immunity, it just opens up. I mean, let's talk about Bush. Let's talk about W going into Iraq with weapons of mass destruction that weren't there. Let's talk about Obama and all the things that he did. I mean, giving pallets of cash to Iran, starting DACA. Obama started DACA, totally an unconstitutional system granting, basically not citizenship, but basically for foreigners, for aliens that are here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could go on as well. I mean, Obama, he was droning people right and left. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. I mean, these people, they were droning. They called it droning. They're just killing people every day almost. I think Obama was killing people. He killed people every single day that he was in office. I'm not sure. Certainly hundreds of thousands of people. Bush hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people. So if you take the presidential immunity away, then that is going to, I think, break apart the country. I don't think that the country really survives. I think that you have to have the presidential immunity there. I mean, that's just the way it is. Before I address what happened today in Florida, I want to share an observation. Judge Tanya Chutkan had a choice to hold a hearing on Trump motion to dismiss based on presidential immunity. There should have been a no-brainer. What Judge Cannon doing? The numerous defense. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is too. I mean, this Judge Cannon, of course, she was supposed to be kind of, ruling in Trump's favor, but who knows? So the other part of this is the J6. They're going to hear, I think, and maybe rule or give an opinion on some of the J6 stuff. So DC Drano, he's a well-known guy here. Could be a historic week in decisions from the Supreme Court. They're issuing opinions on Thursday and Friday before they adjourn for the summer. Presidential immunity for Trump, ? J6 criminal charges overturned, ? Stopping government censorship of free speech on social media. Stay tuned. Now, I am on record over and over again for saying that I do not expect the supreme robes to save us, okay? Judges are not revolutionists. And it is what it is. What do we got? We have a mom in there. We got a bunch of old dudes. These guys, they never fought anything in their whole life, right? I think to expect that these judges to be revolutionist is too much of it's just not going to happen. That's not the way it works. So if the people are supporting things very strongly, then I think that they'll rule that way. But otherwise, I don't think they will. I think that's just the way of the world, my friends. That's the way it works. As well, let's see here. Supreme Court is slated to rule on Trump's presidential immunity claim could keep Donald Trump in prison in New York conviction. Let's see what this has to say right here. Boom. Oops. There we go. Huh.
Assuming the Supreme Court does not give Donald Trump blanket immunity for these ridiculous charges in New York, we're not expecting Donald Trump to go to state prison in New York, right?
Well, of course, as everyone's been discussing, now that President Trump's been convicted, he does theoretically face jail time. And the decision about that is left solely up to the trial judge, Judge Merchan, who, of course, has been very unfair and many people have noted has been very unconstitutional in a lot of his rulings. So the idea of whether he could sentence Trump to jail is a real possibility. But whether he actually serves that time is another question, because even if he gets sentenced to jail, which is possible, although it shouldn't happen, the appeal of that case, just the normal appeal, would normally essentially pause the execution of the sentence while the appeals are pending. So what that means is that the appeals take a long time. Sometimes it takes even years to complete appeals on these types of criminal cases, and that the appellate court can essentially pause the jail sentence while the appeals are still being decided, even aside from the immunity issue. But I think personally that if the court says that there is some sort of immunity for acts committed while in office, that would impact the New York case, because at the end of the day, even though the New York case talked a lot about these affairs with Stormy Daniels back in the day and all these things that happened many, many years ago, the charged offenses, the actual payments and the bookkeeping that were at the heart of the charged offenses, all of that occurred after President Trump was in office. And so at the very least, I think that could result in the case being sent back down for a factual analysis about whether or not it falls on one side of the immunity line. So I think the immunity case could absolutely pause the sentencing there as well. But even without that, even if the court says that somehow that New York case is not applicable, the regular appellate process will pause any sort of jail sentence for the foreseeable future, more than likely.
So I think that one of the things that's interesting about this, and I think it's something that we need to, as a country, really think about as we move forward, because I do think things are going to change, whether you like them or not. Things are changing, and so they're either going to change in our favor or they're not, depending on which side that you're on. And I'm not really. I love everybody. I don't not love people, certain people. I think that everybody deserves a shake at life. We don't have to agree on everything. Doesn't mean that we can't be friends. I think everybody deserves freedom. Everybody deserves right to prosperity. I mean, these are things that are ingrained in my belief system. But I also think that we need to consider, Judge Chenkin was born in Colombia. So we have a foreign-born person who probably has dual citizenship with Colombia, who is now convicted a president of the United States. Should that be possible? Should somebody that has dual citizenship be able to be a judge in the United States? And I don't know that he has dual citizenship, but he probably does. And then when you start going down that road, then you have Erdogan, who convicted Trump in the fraud trial. And I don't know if Erdogan has dual citizenship with Israel, but I think it's quite possible that he does. And because what Israel does is basically everybody that is Jewish can become Israeli. Like it doesn't matter. You're basically de facto Israeli if you're Jewish. That's how they do it. So that puts everybody in an interesting situation, because, of course, that now also opens up a lot of the administrative state and the deep state, judges, administrative state in the government. You can look at the cabinet, even like Secretary of State, like the Undersecretary of State, and a lot of these people quite possibly have dual citizenship, whether it's with Israel or wherever else. But Israel is one of the main ones, because, of course, they just blanket, if you're Jewish, you can be Israeli, right? So should people that are in the U.S. government and making decisions that affect all of us have dual citizenship? What do you think? You tell me what you think. Should judges that are ruling and convicting the president of the United States and maybe putting him in jail have dual citizenship? Because the thing is, if you have dual citizenship, you have you have a place that you can immediately go to if something goes, and you also have alliances, right? Should that be? And I don't know, maybe it should be. Tell me what you think. Let me know what you think. Should a foreign-born judge or a dual citizen judge be able to convict the president of the United States? Someone who has a passport of another country. Seems like a stretch to me. But let me know what you think. Should people that have dual citizenship be able to serve in Congress? We're in a point now. So with Netanyahu coming, of course, we had Zelensky in here before. But with Netanyahu coming in here, of course, they're going to hit us with another $100 billion or more that they're going to want. So they're going to want another $100 billion. That cost the average American family of four $2,000. And you fill that in inflation. So they just take it. They don't ask you. They just take that in inflation. They dilute the money supply, and it's paid for like that. Because it's not like, sometimes like with Saudi Arabia for a while there, people were buying oil and they were taking US dollars, but they were holding them. Israel and Ukraine and Taiwan, they're not going to hold the US dollars. They're going to spend them, presumably, right? One way or the other. I'm sure there's a lot of funny business that goes on there anytime you're dealing with that much money. But that money is going into circulation, whether it's to buy arms or to buy, different types of things. That money will be in circulation. And so that's directly diluting, and that makes inflation go up. So I think that's an interesting question. And that's a question, as we move forward, we need to ask ourselves. Should people that have different alliances to other countries be able to serve in the leadership of our country? I think it's a very important question. should a judge who's carrying a passport of another country be able to convict and possibly put in jail the president or former president of the United States? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. As I said, things are going to change. Things are changing. We're entering, I'm not sure how we get past World War III at this point. And then letting Assange go, I mean, it was a deal. So he must have promised to do something, not to talk about something or to do something, or who knows, right? Who knows? It's crazy. So let's talk about Assange a little bit. So Assange is free. Assange is free. So Stella and I, we follow each other. Stella, his wife. I have been quite a vocal advocate of freeing this man. We also need to free Edward Snowden. There's some other ones too. But Julian Assange is free, and this is a big deal. This is a really, really big deal. Let me just, I got the right screen here. Okay. After 5 years, they're just saying 5 years in jail, but the truth is that it was more. He has been really hiding out for even longer, but he went to jail for saying stuff like this.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
So it's interesting because that is exactly what my father told me. So my father was in Vietnam. He did 2 tours in Vietnam. And he actually volunteered for a 3rd tour, and they lost the paperwork. But they came to him and they said, hey, Captain, or whatever he was at the time, we lost, I think he was Captain, who knows, he was young. We lost the paperwork of to re-enlist you for the 3rd tour. And by that time, my father had figured out that we weren't trying to win the war, that we were just having a war. He was part of the long-range reconnaissance patrol teams, the LRP teams. And this is why I didn't go in the military too. Dad, Grandpa, they had figured it out. All wars were bankers' wars. And he said, look, and I was out there, as he would say, snooping and pooping, okay? And, they find the rail line, and, okay, they know that this railroad is bringing in arms. Come back. Hey, guys, look, we just need to bomb this group of trains right here. They're bringing in the supplies and the ammo for the guys that we're going to fight tomorrow. And the superior officers weren't interested in bombing those trains. And why? Well, what are you talking about? These guys are bringing the ammo to the guys that we're fighting tomorrow. And, son, you don't understand. What do you mean I don't understand? And, Washington doesn't want us to do that. And we're not doing that. And so next day, and this, of course, is a very specific story, but there was other ones as well. Next day, they go out and, he loses a bunch of buddies in shooting up, and they were shot up and killed by the supplies that we could have easily bombed and not had there. And they said, you don't understand. You don't understand how this works. But then he figured it out, right? And he figured it out. And all wars are bankers' wars. They're all bankers' wars. Sick business. It's very, very sick business. But anyway, so they lost the paperwork, and he looked at them and he said, we need you to sign this. And he had figured it out by then. And he says, I have amnesia. And he went home. Anyway, off on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's when he talks about money laundering and everything else. I mean, there's other stories as well. Dad got picked up by some helicopters. They were out in the middle of nowhere and in some trouble, and they got picked up, and the helicopters were full of heroin, and the CIA was running heroin, and the black ops, and they told him, well, this is how we fund the black ops. And at the time, he thought that was pretty cool. They were able to fund the black ops with doing this. And as he got older, he said, that's pretty sick. So the CIA is running drugs, and they're running heroin in Vietnam. And that's not right. And then, of course, when I came of age to go in the military, it was we were shooting up Panama. Why? Because of the narco wars. And so I knew that. So that was not an option for me. And instead, here I am on TV every day and on social media, telling the world about what's going on. And we have a moment in time here, guys. We're at a moment in history. We're at a very important moment in history. And we need to remember, one, those of us who were here, our families were here for so long, that we have a responsibility, not only to our forefathers who came before us, but we have a responsibility to our kids. Probably more importantly, definitely more importantly, we have a responsibility to our kids to leave them with a world leave them with a country that they can have freedom, that our future generations can continue. And it's also important for us to understand, and this is what I always talk about, that we have to work together. We don't have to agree all the time. I may say some things that you think are off. I probably do. I say a lot of stuff. I probably say some things that you like and some things that you don't like. But we have to be accepting of each other, and we have to work together. And just because your family was here since the beginning, that's great. But other people aren't, and we got to work together. We have to work together. We're all here. This is the greatest nation. The U.S. is the greatest nation, maybe in the history of the world, but certainly in recent history. And right now, this our freedom is null and void. Really, I mean, we have no freedom. We're spied on all the time. Look at Trump. They'll throw you in jail, arrest you for anything. And we have no control over where our money goes as well. Taxes are illegal. Federal income tax is illegal. Now, of course, they legalized it, but it is illegal. And you shouldn't have to pay. You actually supposedly don't have to pay, but if you don't pay, they'll throw you in jail. So we don't live in a free country anymore. And that's something that we need to fix. We really need to fix it, guys. We got to fix it. Well, it's been a great show. I appreciate you guys. I haven't been able to tweet as much and do all the things like I normally do. But it is always a pleasure. And I know starting the show was kind of... But, one of the most important things, the most important job that I have is as a father, right? And so those moments as we're bringing the kids up and doing things, those moments are really important. They're really important to me. They should be really important to you. And that's another thing before I end the show out. We got to have more kids. And, I know it's tough. I didn't get married till I was 30. I get it. But we need to have more kids, and we need to be honest with our kids too. I tell my girls the most important job that they have, the most important thing that they can do is have a family. And that is the message that we need to give our kids. Not that the most important thing that they can do is go and become a lawyer or a doctor or this or that or the other. That's not the most important thing that they can do. The most important thing that they can do is have a family. So the numbers come out, right? And they say that if every woman, but you could probably say every man too, but I don't know, but the numbers are every woman. If every woman doesn't have 2.1 kids, that the society is is going to fail. That basically you're going into extinction. Now, 2.1 is a pretty funny number, right? Because it's really, 3, I guess. You got to at least more than replace yourself is the deal. You got to replace yourself. So if you have a husband and you have a wife, you got to have at least 2 kids to replace yourself. So for the society to grow, 2.1 is what they say, right? So if the survival of our people is dependent on every woman having at least 2 to 3 kids, then what in the world are we allowing society to tell our girls that the most important thing they can do is go to college and get a job and work for some corporation? Like, it's totally backwards. It's crazy. You probably think the same way. I just, of course, have a microphone so I can talk about it. If the survival of our people is dependent on us having kids, then that's the most important job that we have. And why don't people have more kids? Oh, well, because they don't have maybe enough money, they think. Why don't they have enough money? Well, the government, not the government really, it's the central bank. The central bank is taking like half of the money. It's more than half. So you're getting taxed about 50%, 40, 50%. It's more because you have taxes on everything. Gas is taxed at 40, 50% itself. And then with the inflation that they're hitting us with, it's even more. So you have the inflation tax. We're getting taxed, the middle class, and the middle class feels it the most, the middle class and lower class. There's now 5 different classes. There's 5 different classes. You have the super wealthy, you have the affluent, you have the middle class, you have the lower middle class, I guess we'll call them, but they're not really. And then you have the poor. Okay, so we have 5 classes. But we are, in reality, getting taxed into extinction by the central bank. The central bank has only been around since 1913, 111 years. So the central bank is actually taxing us into extinction. It's a true fact. People don't want to have kids because they don't think they have the money to have kids. Wives don't want to have more kids because they don't think they can afford them. Husbands don't want to have. People don't want to get married because they don't think they can afford it. People can't afford a house. Anyway, love you guys. Another great show. Appreciate you. Let me play my little thing here. Oh man, and we're gonna have our song too out here soon. The Rothschild Tax. The Rothschild Tax. Cheers.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.